Hey there, you can call me Toby. Today, I'm gonna talk about the first James Bond movie. No, not that one. Now we're talking. The first ever James Bond movie was actually barely a feature film at all. It was actually an episode of an anthology series named Climax that aired on CBS from 1954 to 1958. Casino Royale was the third episode of the series, which by the way has Barry Nelson, Stuart Ullman from The Shining starring as James Bond, or should I say Jimmy Bond, because it is an adaptation of the Ian Fleming book of the same name. James Bond is American. Absolute bollocks. The movie slash episode slash skit slash whatever has a 2.5 average rating on Letterboxd, which means it's a pretty lousy film. It's also the only movie to have William H. Brown Jr., the director, credit. Other mildly famous people to are in this movie include Peter Lorre, who was in Casablanca, Eugene Borden, who was also in Casablanca, Jean Duval, who was in, you guessed it, Casablanca. Literally, a good part of this movie's cast was in Casablanca. The crew also has a few famous faces, including Charles Bennett, who wrote Hitchcock's 39 Steps, and Jerry Goldsmith, who composed the score for several classics such as Alien, Mulan, Polanski's Chinatown, The Mummy, Gremlins, Poltergeist, First Blood, The Burbs, the list goes on. Other interesting things about this weird movie is that it was actually lost media for a while, until a dude named Jim Schoenberger found a kinescope print of it. He initially thought that it was from the 67 movie, but then he realized that it was actually the 54 one. It was then rediscovered and screened at the theater, shown on TBS and released on videocassettes and DVD. This movie also technically has the first Bond one-liner, which was,
"Aren't you the fella who was shot?" "No, I'm the fella who was missed."
Nailed it. Kinda like that awful Carrie 22 remake, this movie was supposed to launch a James/Jimmy Bond TV show that had actually been greenlit and was being written by Ian Fleming, author of the original novels. It was obviously cancelled because that's what goes on with this stuff, and Bond didn't return to the big screen until Dr. No in 62. Also, fun fact, the Terrence Young film was President Kennedy's favorite film, and was consequently once screened at the White House. Cool, right? The unused scripts for the scrapped TV show were actually reworked, my favorite word, into short stories, and were included in the Octo
Pussy
and Living Daylights books. Another thing about this movie is that it is the only movie where the line
Bond. James Bond.
is not said at all. Now, you might think that this is because Mr. Bond was named to Jimmy Bond in this godforsaken movie, but it's actually not because of that. It didn't even have the Jimmy variation, it just gone, reduced to atoms. This is also similar to the fact that he's never referred to as 007 in this movie. I'm just gonna assume that the writers forgot about it, because, come on, if you do remember it and don't actually put the lines in the Blood movie, you'd be known worldwide as an idiot. Or not, because this movie is like extremely obscure, so you'd have a chance to escape intact. The 1954 movie Casino Royale, based on the book with the same name written by Ian Fleming, is in many ways a bad movie. But it was necessary to kick off and shape the wonderful franchise that we have today. That is pretty much undeniable. Now that I've broken down everything that I could about this movie without even watching it, yes, I didn't watch the movie, bite me. Now we have concluded this part of the video, but I still feel like doing a brief analysis on another James Bond movie that can also be considered forgotten. No, what you're talking about. Thank you. Never Say Never Again is a mildly obscure Bond movie released in 1983 and actually starring Sean Connery and his 12-year hiatus after Diamonds Are Forever. This movie was not produced by EON Productions, consequently making it a non-official film, which explains why it and Casino Royale 67, which was also not produced by EON, to be left out of many James Bond movie lists. But I've made a comprehensive James Bond films list on Letterboxd. Go check it out, the link is in the description and probably in the top right. If I win my ADHD, I remember to put it in. This movie is also a remake of Thunderball, which also has Sean Connery starring, making it one of the extremely rare cases where a remake of a movie has an actor/actress from the original film in it. Some interesting trivia about this movie includes the fact that it was Rowan Atkinson, Mr. Bean himself's first feature film. He then went on to literally parody the Bond films in the Johnny English franchise. But a very weird behind-the-scenes fact about this movie is that the young Steven Seagal was this movie's martial arts instructor. One day in set, he got so angry by Saoirse Connery during a training session that he broke his wrist. Now that's insane. And with that, we have finished this video. Can't wait to look at some plants in the next episode. Never mind.